They told you life would slow down after 60, as if joy had an expiration date, as if laughter had a retirement plan, as if love, respect, and wonder bowed out when the wrinkles showed up. They were wrong, completely and gloriously wrong, because something incredible begins when you cross that invisible threshold, when the world stops expecting you to prove yourself, and you finally start living for yourself. Not selfishly, but truthfully, you begin to live with intention, not obligation. You no longer rush to meet the expectations of others. You begin to meet your own soul, and you listen, really listen to what it has been whispering all these years. At 60, your vision changes, not the eyesight, but the insight. You begin to see things you were too busy to notice before, like the quiet courage in slowing down, or the beauty in silence, or the strength in simplicity. You've lived through storms, and now you understand the weather. You know when to shelter, when to walk, and when to dance in the rain. You've known loss, heartache, mistakes, and still you've risen. You've loved people who didn't stay. You've fought battles that no one applauded, and you've carried burdens quietly with dignity. So now you no longer need the approval of the world, because you've earned the approval of your own heart. You stop chasing the spotlight and start basking in the sunlight. You choose mornings with tea over meetings with tension. You prefer long walks to long arguments. You've learned that peace is more valuable than being right, that being present is more powerful than being busy. You've walked through decades, and each step taught you something. Time has been your teacher, your sculptor, your healer, and now you're not weaker, you're wiser. You've traded speed for depth, noise for clarity, and fear for faith. After 60, you don't pretend to have all the answers, but you know what questions really matter. You don't waste time on things that steal your joy. You don't tolerate relationships that drain your soul. You stop giving your energy to people who only take. You protect your peace like a treasure, because now you know it is won. You start to feel younger, not because your body is, but because your spirit is finally free from pretending, from proving, from pleasing. You become more you than ever before. And in that authenticity, you find a new kind of youth, the kind that doesn't fade with time, the kind that grows with every honest breath. You no longer care about fitting into roles. You care about fitting into your own life. You dress for comfort, not commentary. You speak your truth, not trends. You laugh louder, cry deeper, love harder, and rest better. Your emotions no longer scare you, because you've learned they are not enemies, but messengers. Each wrinkle becomes a line of poetry, each scar a line of your story, each gray hair a silver medal of survival. And suddenly you don't want to rewind time. You want to live it. You want to wake up each day and be fully in it, not rushing, not regretting, but rejoicing. You see beauty in the ordinary, in the way the light falls on your hands, in the sound of birds at dawn, in the kindness of strangers, in the way you've learned to be kind to yourself. You eat slower. You walk with more awareness. You listen better. You laugh at things that used to irritate you. You let go of things you once clung to. You begin to understand that letting go is not losing. It's gaining space for joy. You forgive more easily, because you know anger ages the soul. You say no without guilt. You say yes with purpose. You travel not to escape, but to explore. You read not to impress, but to understand. You love not to fill a void, but to overflow. And perhaps most beautifully, after 60, you begin to mentor not by words, but by example. You become the living proof that age is not a cage. It is a stage, a glorious one, where grace outshines glamour, where wisdom becomes magnetic, where purpose replaces pressure. You become a lighthouse for those still lost at sea. You become the voice of calm in a noisy world. You become the soul who walks ahead so others can follow with hope. You are no longer chasing dreams. You are living them differently. You may not run, but you still move mountains with your mindset, with your compassion, with your presence. You are not finished. You are refined. You are not winding down. You are rising up. Your best thoughts, your purest love, your strongest voice. They're not behind you. They are here now. You've shed the skin of self-doubt. You've outgrown the illusion of perfection. You've embraced the sacred truth that you are enough, that you've always been enough, that your life matters not because of its speed, but because of its soul. So you stop measuring your life by milestones and start measuring it by moments. By mornings without alarm clocks, by afternoons filled with laughter, by evenings with stories, by nights with peace. You let your days be filled with meaning, not busyness. You stop collecting things, you start collecting memories. You let your life become a soft place for others to land. You become a home, a presence, a sanctuary. And when you look in the mirror, you don't see years lost. You see layers gained. You see a life lived with all its heartbreak and healing. You see the courage it took to become this version of you, and you smile because you wouldn't trade this wisdom, this freedom, this gentle, fierce self for all the youth in the world. You know, now that happiness is not in the hustle, it's in the harmony. That purpose is not in the proving, it's in the peace. That aging is not a decline, it's an ascension. You are not fading, you are flowering. And the world is brighter because you are still in it, more tender, more present, more alive than ever. And that is why life gets better after 60. There comes a moment in the quiet of your 60s where everything that once confused you begins to make sense. The pain had a purpose, the delays were divine, the detours were directions in disguise. You no longer resent the road, you revere it. You understand now that every scar on your soul was a signature of growth. Every goodbye you endured carved space for a new beginning. You don't fear the end, you cherish the continuation, because life after 60 isn't a conclusion, it's an awakening. The noise of youth fades, and what's left is your true voice, strong, clear, unapologetic. You speak from a place of lived truth, not borrowed opinions. You share stories, not to boast, but to bless. You give advice not to be heard, but to help. And your wisdom lands softer, deeper, because it comes not from books, but from battles won and lessons absorbed. Your kindness expands because you've seen enough of life to know how hard it really is. You become gentle, not because you're weak, but because strength no longer needs to shout. You understand that a kind word is more powerful than a clever one, that listening is more healing than preaching, that presence is more important than performance. You begin to measure your worth differently, not in likes, not in income, not in achievements, but in how many hearts you've touched, how many lives you've softened, how many people feel safer around you. You don't need an audience. You become the mirror others see themselves in, and in doing so, you become immortal, not in years, but in the echoes of your example. Your health may shift, but your perspective soars. You begin to feel grateful for the body that has carried you all these years. You love it for what it has survived, for the tears it held, for the joy it expressed, for the children it bore, for the laughter it shook with. You no longer chase beauty. You become it in the way your eyes light up when you talk about your grandchild, in the way your hands tremble with tenderness, in the way your voice carries warmth over words, in the way you offer the world your most honest self. You realize now that grace is more attractive than glamour, that patience is more alluring than perfection, that serenity is the new sexy. You embrace solitude not as loneliness, but as sacred space. You learn to love your own company. You fill your own cup, not because you have to, but because you want to, because it feels good to sit with yourself and feel at home. You forgive yourself. You forgive others, not because they earned it, but because you deserve the peace. You carry fewer grudges. You hold tighter to gratitude. You stop comparing your path. You start honoring your pace. You see the younger generation with compassion, not criticism. You guide not with judgment, but with presence. You watch them run and stumble, and you smile. Because you remember, you don't envy their speed. You offer your steadiness. You become the calm in their chaos. The reminder that it's okay to not have it all figured out, that sometimes not knowing is the path to knowing. You invest in legacy, not luxury. You begin to ask, what am I leaving behind? How will the world remember my love, my laughter, my lessons? You realize your legacy isn't built in monuments, but in moments and meals cooked for family, in hands held during grieving calls returned, in forgiveness offered in time given. Your priorities sharpen. You no longer have time for petty. You make space for a meaning. You drop the roles. You play your soul. You write poems with your presence. You sing songs with your silence. You dance not for display, but for delight. You are done performing. You are living raw, real, and radiantly. You look around and realize how much beauty still exists. The way the sunlight paints the walls at dusk, the sound of your favorite song, the smell of home, the comfort of old books, the tenderness of a handwritten note. You become awake to life. You begin to fall in love with it again and again and again, and in doing so you become timeless because your heart does not age. It deepens. Your love does not wither, it ripens. Your joy does not fade, it focuses. You live with less, but feel more, you buy less. But give more, you plan less. But enjoy more, because now. You know, what really matters, what truly lasts, what actually heals, you love with depth. Not drama, you live with presence. Not pressure, you give with purpose. Not performance, and you receive with humility. Not hesitation, you are a vessel. Now, of all that is real, all that is needed, all that is enough, and you don't need anyone to remind you anymore that you are valuable. You know it in your bones. You carry the evidence in your eyes, in your smile, in your calm, and you no longer chase life. You welcome it. You no longer fight time. You walk with it, hand in hand, heart, wide open soul, fully alight, because now you've learned the secret, not just to surviving past 60, but to thriving within it. The secret is, this life doesn't get dimmer after 60. It gets distilled down to its richest, truest, most soul-filling essence. And in that clarity you find not just years, but meaning, not just survival, but serenity, not just stories, but wisdom. And in that wisdom, you finally understand. Life was never about how long you live, but how deeply you feel, how honestly you love, and how bravely you grow. And after 60, you finally have the courage to live all of it fully, truly, fearlessly. And that's why life gets better after 60. And now you sit with yourself in moments of quiet, not out of loneliness, but out of reverence. You understand the sacred value of silence, the holy stillness, where truth breathes and clarity awakens you. No longer fear being alone, because you're no longer a stranger to yourself. You've walked with yourself through every storm, and still you're here, wiser, softer, and more complete than ever before. You no longer carry the need to explain your peace to anyone. It's enough that you've earned it. You look back, not with regret, but recognition. Every heartbreak taught you something. Every failure shaped your direction. Every delay became your divine redirection. And so your past is not a prison, it's a path. And it led you here, not perfect, but powerful, not flawless, but fulfilled. You've stopped rushing because you've realized there's nowhere to be but here. In this breath, in this moment, in this chapter, you no longer measure your worth by your productivity. You measure it by your presence. You no longer feel guilty for resting. You understand that rest is holy, and you give yourself permission to sit in the sun, to sip your tea slowly, to walk barefoot through the grass, to let joy surprise you in ordinary ways. Because now you know joy isn't found in achievement, it's found in appreciation. You don't need a reason to smile. Your life is the reason you don't need the world's applause. Your heartbeat is enough proof that you're meant to be here. You're more interested in depth than attention, more interested in honesty than image. You've embraced the wrinkles, the creases, the changes as sacred symbols of a life courageously lived. You've earned every line with laughter and loss and love. And that kind of beauty can't be manufactured. It's the kind of beauty that glows in your eyes when you speak truth. The kind that rests on your shoulders with quiet confidence. The kind that rises from your soul like incense and fills the room without needing permission. You give more freely now, not to be seen, but because, giving makes you richer. You hug longer. You say, I love you more often. You let people know they matter because you've learned that unspoken love is love wasted, and life is too fragile for ego, too precious for pride, too fleeting for silence. You choose people who choose peace. You avoid drama like poison. You let go of what doesn't nourish your soul. You travel lighter because, heavy hearts don't fly, and you've got more flying to do, not to escape, but to experience. Because every sunset looks different after 60, every breeze carries deeper meaning, every flower seems like a miracle, and the stars feel like old friends. You become enchanted by life again, not because it's new, but because you finally have eyes to see it. You're no longer numb. You're fully awake to the brilliance of the everyday, and your gratitude expands like the morning sun stretching its fingers over your world, illuminating everything with meaning, even the pain, even the losses, even the scars. Because now you know that what once broke you has built you. What once hurt you has healed you. What once shook you has shaped you. And you wouldn't undo any of it, because it all brought you here to this moment, to this strength, to this grace, to this deep and quiet joy that doesn't need to be explained. Only felt you stop trying to change others. You begin to change how you meet them, with softness, with boundaries, with dignity. You stop arguing for your limitations and start advocating for your joy. You stop trying to be enough. You start realizing you already are enough. have always been and always will be. And when others see you now, they feel something different, not just age, but authority, not just years, but presence, not just survival, but sovereignty. Because you carry the weight of wisdom lightly with a smile, with a story, with a sparkle in your eye that says, I've been through fire and I'm still dancing. You become a keeper of light, a guardian of hope, a gentle giant who doesn't roar but radiates you. Become someone others look to not for answers, but for calm, not for perfection, but for peace. And that is your power. You don't preach, you embody. You don't convince, you shine. You don't demand respect. You exude it, and people feel safer around you. Not because you have all the answers, but because you're comfortable with questions. And that comfort spreads like a balm to everyone in your orbit. Your life becomes a sanctuary, not a show. You host joy without occasion, you welcome rest without apology, and you honor the ordinary like it's sacred because it is. The way a grandchild wraps their arms around your waist, the way an old friend laughs at the same joke, the way your body sighs when you lay down at night, the way the morning light kisses your window and reminds you you get to do this again. Live, breathe, love, feel, exist, and in that awareness you find a reverence for living that no youth can mimic, no money can buy, and no culture can define you. Become culture. You become a rhythm, a depth, a soul that reminds others of what matters, of who they are beneath the noise. You become a mirror of meaning. And when people look into your life, they don't see someone who's fading. They see someone who's finally glowing from the inside out. And that glow isn't for show. It's your soul, it's your light, it's your truth. And it cannot be dimmed by age or slowed by time because it is eternal, it is you. And that is why life gets better after 60. Not because it's easier, but because it's real. Not because there's more time, but because you've learned how to use it. Not because you're invincible, but because you're finally vulnerable. And that vulnerability becomes your superpower. You open, you soften, you deepen, you rise, and through it all, you discover the greatest truth of all. You are not growing old, you are growing whole, and that is the miracle of this season. The beauty of becoming the power of 60 and beyond.